Far beneath the surface of the ocean, deeper than any human eye could see, there was a world more beautiful than anything above the water. The Sea King had ruled this kingdom alone for centuries, raising his 6 daughters with the help of his wise and ancient mother, who loved them beyond measure. The youngest daughter was unlike her sisters. She had a secret garden, and at its heart stood a marble statue of a boy she could not stop thinking about. Each sister rose to the surface on her 15th birthday and returned with stories of the world above, and the youngest listened with the heart that ached with longing. On the morning of her 15th birthday, her grandmother placed a wreath of white lilies on her head, and the little mermaid could barely contain her joy. She rose through the dark water and broke the surface just as the sun was setting, and what she saw above the waves took every thought from her mind. She swam closer to the ship, drawn by the music and golden light pouring from its windows, and she had never seen anything so magnificent in all her life. Then, she looked through the porthole and saw him, a young prince with dark eyes and a warm, honest face, and something in her heart shifted forever. Without warning, a violent storm rose from the ocean, and the magnificent ship that had been glowing with celebration was suddenly fighting for its life. She found him sinking beneath the dark water with his eyes closed. She caught him and held his head above the waves and swam through the terrible storm all night long. She laid him on the warm sand and stayed beside him as the sun rose, stroking his hair and watching his chest rise and fall, knowing he would never know. A young girl came from the temple and found him, and when his eyes opened, he smiled at her, believing she had saved his life. He never saw the one who truly did. She returned to her garden beneath the waves, but nothing was the same. She could not eat or sleep, and all she saw in the marble face was his. She asked her grandmother if a mermaid could ever receive an immortal soul, and her grandmother looked at her with love and told her the most devastating truth. She swam into the darkest part of the ocean through fields of dark polyps that reached for her with grabbing arms, and she did not turn back once. At the end of the bone-white lair, the sea witch was already waiting for her, smiling coldly as if she had known all along. The sea witch told her everything. Every step would feel like walking on knives, her voice would be taken forever, and if the prince married another, she would die. The sea witch reached for her throat, and her voice, the most beautiful voice in the entire ocean, rose from her throat as a golden light and was gone forever. She came to the shore alone at midnight, holding the potion in her hands, looking at the palace lights above, and then she drank every drop. When she woke, the sun was rising and the prince was standing over her, and she tried to speak to him, and nothing came, not a single sound. The prince brought her into his palace and gave her the finest clothes and treated her with such genuine kindness that every person there loved her immediately. She stood on the palace balcony and looked at the ocean for the first time as a human and felt the full weight of everything she had given up. They rode along the cliff above the sea, and the wind was in her hair, and the ocean was below her, and for one moment she was the most joyful person alive. Every single step felt like walking on the sharpest knives. But she did not cry out once, and the prince thought her the most graceful person he had ever seen. Every night when the palace slept, she would slip into the dark ocean alone, and the moment the water closed around her, every knife, like pain, would dissolve into nothing. He told her about the girl who had saved his life, described her face and her kindness, and she listened to him describe herself without being able to say a single word. He told her she was his favorite companion in all the world, but his heart still belonged to someone else, and she could say absolutely nothing at all. She had no voice, and he had no way to know the truth. But between them, something had grown that needed no words at all to be completely real. She danced for him that evening, and every person in the room wept without knowing why. But only the audience truly understood what every beautiful step cost her. When the dance ended, The entire court rose to honor her with tears and genuine admiration, and none of them knew what every single beautiful step had truly cost. One night, her sisters rose to the surface and called to her from the dark waves, and she crept to the water's edge and wept in complete and total silence. The prince's ship set sail for the neighboring kingdom, and with every mile it covered, the little mermaid felt a cold and growing dread she could not name. As the evening came, she stood alone on the deck and felt something colder than the deepest water, a certainty she could not name and could not escape. The king announced formally that the prince was to marry the princess the following day, and the words fell into the room, and the little mermaid felt everything dissolve. The prince was brought before the princess, and he went completely still because she was the girl from the beach he had never once stopped searching for. She walked away from the doorway and down the dark corridor alone, and the weight of what she had just seen settled on her completely, and without a single sound. The prince married the princess on the deck as the sun set, and the little mermaid watched from the edge, her heart breaking completely and forever. The wedding night celebrations filled the ship with golden light and laughter, and the little mermaid stood at the edge of all of it, knowing the sun would not find her alive. She danced at his wedding with tears on her face, and the guests wept watching her without knowing why, and the prince watched with admiration, not knowing what he truly saw. Her sisters rose from the dark water, but their beautiful hair was gone, and they held a knife toward her and told her it was her very last chance. She stood outside the door with the knife in her hand, and the weight of the impossible choice settled on her like the deepest water she had ever known. She stood over the sleeping prince with the knife in her hand, and she looked at his peaceful face, and she loved him too completely to use it. She carried the knife to the window and threw it into the dark ocean below, and she watched it disappear beneath the water and felt completely and finally free. This is what the sea witch promised she would become: delicate white sea foam dissolving with the next wave, beautiful and temporary and completely gone. She stood at the bow as the first light of dawn appeared, and instead of dissolving into sea foam, she felt herself rising into the golden morning sky. She rose into the golden sky, and the spirits of the air received her, and they told her that because of her extraordinary love, she had been given a new and beautiful path. She looked down through the golden clouds at the prince far below, at the person she had loved more than her own life, and felt only the most complete peace. She looked down through the golden clouds at the world she had loved and chosen to leave, and she felt a peace so complete it had no edges and no end. This story has never been about a girl who wanted legs. It has always been about what love truly looks like when it chooses the beloved completely and entirely over itself. She looked down at the calm ocean and saw her own reflection for the first time. Not the girl she was, but the golden spirit she had always been. She looked at the ocean, and very faintly, she saw her grandmother's ancient face looking up at her from below, with the warmest and most knowing smile she had ever seen. This story was written by Hans Christian Andersen in 1837, and Little Princess Fairy Tales is deeply honored to tell it exactly as he first wrote it.